Today we are talking about competing in USPSA or IDPA with the Canik TP9SFX. Are you ready? Stand by. So the Canik TP9SFX packs on a lot of value with a feature set that is very attractive to competition shooters. I've already reviewed this gun here on the channel, but about 15 of y'all watched it, despite me making the best intro I've ever made on a video. I mean, I'm not upset about that. I'm just worried about you and your taste and what you're watching on YouTube where you didn't watch my video. So in that video, we talked about the positives and the negatives of the gun. Some of the negatives include the top-heavy nature, which makes it kind of unwieldy to handle, the spring weights which caused reliability issues, and the itty-bitty mag well. And turning it around to create contrast, the features that were good out of the box with the Canik include the trigger, which is pretty strong right out of the box, the iron sights are excellent, and the optics mounting system is pretty flexible. And the mag release button is already extended, which is a fantastic feature for a competition pistol, which this is. The name of the game in playing these gun games is to increase the positives that you have and decrease the negatives. So with an eye towards that, we'll talk about how to set this up for an optimum USPSA gun. And it's worth noting that what we're going to talk about in this video is going to be legal in USPSA production and carry optics. If you're considering limited and or open division, there are some other things you can do, but the gun's just not as competitive in those divisions. If you're watching for IDPA, then these will be applicable there as well, with the exception of the last one that we'll talk about. So 2 out of 3 ain't bad. And that's illegal as of the third quarter of 2020. As you know, the rules to these games can change at the drop of a hat, so maybe it'll be legal in IDPA one day, who's to say? So let's talk about the first and possibly most important item to fix with the Canik pistol, and that is balancing the spring weights. Now, in order to optimize this, I went with the Sprinco TP9SFX Performance Kit. And this performance kit comes with a yellow recoil spring, which is going to optimize the operation of the gun for lighter loads that are typically used for target shooting and or competition. If you wanted to set it up for heavier loads, you need to use their red recoil spring. So ammo's pretty tight right now. If all you can find is like NATO, then you would probably want to use their red recoil spring. But as it is right now, this can handle ammo up to about 139 power factor. If you're going to be 140 power factor or above, then you're going to have to consider using the red spring. So the performance kit right out of the box is going to balance the recoil spring and the striker spring. These two springs work against each other, so if you change the spring rate on one, you kind of need to change the spring weight on the other. The striker spring that's included with this is going to set off any ammo and not go ammo sensitive, and I've used a variety of primers with the kit and not had any issues between CCI and Fiocchi primers, which are generally thought of as being hard. But if you're in for a penny, you might as well be in for a pound and get the TSK kit, and that finishes changing out the rest of the springs, and that's going to include the trigger spring and the firing pin plunger spring. And with the springs all balanced like this, the trigger is going to be set up with a 3.5 pound break. Now this gun has a pretty high round count already. It's over 4,000 rounds through the gun, so the trigger pull weight has creeped down naturally. So with this kit balancing it, it's actually about a 2.5 to 2.75 pound pull with a very firm wall and no issues on reset or anything like that. It's quite nice. As far as the gun cycling, the gun had more positive ejection and I had no issues with stovepipes from that point forward. The feel of the gun in recoil changed as well, and that is to the good. It feels like the slide sort of eases into battery as opposed to just kind of hitting and bottoming out, and due to the top heavy nature of the gun, it wants to kind of dip down as the slide closes, and this helps with that. So when you're shooting fast, the gun's muzzle isn't going to want to vibrate quite as much. And to that point, I was able to hold much tighter groups when shooting doubles or rapid strings of fire, which is exactly what you want for a competition. competition gun. So since you're watching this channel, you are men of science and learning, and to reward you, I've come up with a more objective way to measure trigger pulls and convey that to you in ways you can understand. So I'm introducing the Humble Marksman trigger rating system. As you can see on the screen, it takes the trigger out of the box from pretty good to pretty darn good, which is one whole category up. So that's something to check out. And probably the most important thing about the Sprinco kit is it came with some stickers. They come with these "Don't Recoil on Me" stickers, which are pretty darn cool and are in the running for the best stickers of 2020 as far as I'm concerned. And I actually got to speak with the owner of the company, Alan, who has forgotten more about springs than most people will ever know. And through speaking with him, I also learned that these are made right here in Texas. So do not be alarmed if your pain tolerance increases, your affinity for black coffee, and your swagger becomes more noticeable to people of the opposite sex. And one thing he did go over with me is if you're using the heavy for caliber projectiles, your power factor floor needs to be 134 and not 130 or 127. So the issue with the Walter Action, which this gun is based off of, is that it just can't cycle those heavy cartridges quite as reliably as it can the faster, lighter cartridges. So as long as you load up your heavy for caliber rounds to 134 power factor, you shouldn't have any issues with this kit. The install on the system is pretty easy. The recoil system goes in with no major problems, and swapping out the striker spring is no big deal either. It is just as straightforward as a Glock. Now the rest of the kit in the frame and getting at all of those parts is going to be about a click south or two south of a CZ, but a few clicks north of a Glock as far as simplicity is concerned. You're gonna need a mallet, you're gonna need a set of pin punches, an armorer's block. I'll have links to all that in the description below, but it's not that challenging. There's just a few pins you have to drive out. Frank the Tank here on YouTube has install videos for these, so check those out if you're curious. But once you have the gun set up, as I mentioned, the trigger and the feel of the gun in recoil is improved. So what part is next? I can feel the anticipation. You want to know and I want to tell you, but first we have to discuss the sacred relationship between creator and subscriber. I make these absolutely awesome world-class firearms videos and you watch them. You hold up your side of the bargain when you forego years of your career to hone your primitive masonry skills and then build monuments out of stone when viewed from above resemble the logo for this channel so that people of future generations can know the good work that we're doing here. If you're not subscribed to the channel, please go ahead and hit a like. Hit a like if you're subscribed. I appreciate that and it helps us in the search. There's links in the description you can check out and maybe consider becoming a patron for more of this kind of content and behind the scenes look at what's to come. The next part on the docket is the Freedom Smith Champion trigger shoe. So you can see it here. It changes out a plastic part for an aluminum one. It changes out a curved part for a mostly straight one. And it allows you to take a boring part and choose something with really outrageous anodizing to let your inner peacock show, which is apparently really important to USPSA shooters because we all wear these goofy blouses when we go shooting. So less important than the peacocking is the fact that the Freedom Smith trigger shoe further removes the pre-travel and it removes some of the over-travel. Now this is not necessarily drop-in, it may require fitting, and I had to file on the back of the trigger tab safety so the trigger would reset properly, but it wasn't that big of a deal. Now bringing back the Humble Marksman trigger rating system, this takes the trigger pull from pretty darn good to a full stifler.
Yes! That's awesome!
And to deliver on it, this is what the trigger pull is going to look like. So with the safety checked pistol, getting on the trigger, there is this much wiggle. Oh, and getting on the trigger, there is this much wiggle. You are on the wall right there. And here we go, ready? That's it, that's all you get. Reset, get ready for it, here it is. That's how much movement you've got on it. It literally becomes a bang switch. This is no doubt the absolute nicest pistol trigger in a plastic gun I have ever experienced. I cannot overstate how good this trigger feels. It is insane. Nothing comes close to it in a plastic gun. Like, for you guys who have steel pistols, the Shadow 2 single action, if it's been worked on, that's about what this feels like every single time. which is unbelievable. Now they've got a couple profiles and they all basically do the same thing. It's just kind of what do you want. The notable feature about the Champion and the Master is that they have sort of a bevel trigger, so it allows a better trigger reach to get you at the center of the trigger, and that's a feature that I would recommend for anybody. I don't really know why you wouldn't want the bevel right there, because you got to get it straight to the rear, and that gives you better access and makes you less likely to push shots offline or pull shots offline due to how they have the trigger shoe beveled. So it's a pretty amazing trigger, and I honestly can't say enough nice things about it. Getting the part into the pistol is probably almost on par with a CZ. You're going to have to drive this pin out, and you're going to have to drive this pin on the actual trigger shoe itself. Again, if you're not comfortable with an armor block and punches, it's a gunsmith type job, but it's not that bad if you are used to that kind of stuff. And the final piece of the puzzle putting this thing together, and this is where I lose all you IDPA shooters, and I'm sorry for it. Your rule book will be updated one day. I almost am positive of it. And that is the Taylor Freelance brass backstrap. See that backstrap right there? It's got a TF when you come down here on the frame. It is a few ounces, and it actually fixes the balance of the pistol. So with the plastic backstraps that come with the gun, you hold it and you can feel all the weight up here, and it's kind of nose heavy due to how much of the slide is just hanging out in front of the frame like this. But when you put this sucker on it, it counterbalances it. Now, there's going to be a lot of marketing material that tells you that it reduces recoil and all that stuff that we always do, but if you think about where we're adding weight to the gun, it's not really doing anything to change recoil, but it does change the balance of the gun in a very, very positive way. I really like how this gun handles with this sucker installed. I bet if you have the base pads associated with this system, if you're competing in, say, carry optics, then it becomes even better. But one thing this backstrap does do is it has enhanced texture, so it kind of roots itself in the palm of your hand. It feels really good. It is the standard backstrap profile, which I liked the large one a little bit better, but I'd rather have the gun balanced properly with this thing than without. So this is a piece that is absolutely worth the time and money to make happen as well. So the final result when the gun is set up this way is a gun that makes more sense to use in competition. It was more controllable. I was able to keep rapid pairs closer together. The dot was tracking straight up and down better. It was easier to time my shots and be aware of how the dot was moving. Basically, every dimension that matters when you shoot a pistol is improved by this. The only thing that this doesn't address is the magwell is going to be super tiny. You IDPA guys have a remedy for this. USPSA guys were kind of left in the lurch on that one since we don't get magwells. But as this thing is set up right now, this thing can absolutely go toe-to-toe with the big boys that are significantly more costly. I used to turn my nose up at these pistols, but now having experienced this pistol, as it's set up like this, I'm gonna bite my tongue from now on, because it does everything you want something like this to do and then some. So if you have enjoyed this video and you want behind the scenes access, consider subscribing on my Patreon. I make 3 to 5 posts a week, largely talking about what we have coming up. There's plenty of bro science and things like that there that I don't share in these videos that are published to YouTube, as well as some other exclusive content that is coming. So you can follow the link in the description to my Patreon page and support me there. That's what I got for you guys. I appreciate you watching, and I will catch you on the next one.